here to introduce my title. It's LLM, or Text-Based AI Engineering Essay Grading Feedback System. So as an introduction, writing essays in general, especially papers, are very difficult and time-consuming, and especially very time-consuming to grade. Since other than content, you need to pay attention to not only grammar, but also like cohesiveness, clarity, style, etc. And that makes grading it very time-consuming, and especially sometimes it ends up being very subjective and inconsistent. So since we know that the online writing help tools are usually focusing more on grammar and nothing more than that, so it doesn't really pay attention to structure, whether or not this abstract or methodology are written correctly. So teachers spend a lot of time tracking those, checking not only the grammar, the style, the tone, etc. Right? So that's where we come in. We want to take over the more mechanical task of checking a style and leave teachers to be able to focus more on higher level judgment, more on content, more on clarity, and more on ideation. So basically our objective is really simple. Our system takes in the essay and it wants to detect and correct grammar and syntax errors, and then they want to evaluate specific structures such as like abstract, methodology, discussions, etc., since they have very specific sets of expectations. And then we want to apply domain-specific writing rules. We've taken some from the IEEE Convention manual, as well as the Strong and White book of the element of style. And then we want to generate basically concise rule reference and severity tagged feedback so that students understand what they did wrong. So the architecture is pretty simple. We take in the document, the PDF, and parse it into different sections, and then it goes through like a grammar correction, paper structure analysis, and stylistic verification. All of these are mostly prompt engineering, so we design very specific prompting to the AI, so it generates an understandable feedback. And we also design a scoring system so it can give a general scoring of how well the student did. So after you put in your essay, this might be what it looks like. You already designed a front end and the back end, which is like the entire website for it. So it gives it shows the sentence you got wrong, and then it shows the rules that you violated, as well as its suggestions for what you can do for revisions, right? And then it gives a final score. This score itself is not a complete score, it's mostly like a spectrum, so teachers can add in their own scores based on the content and the cohesiveness and the clarity, and produce a final score that they find more suitable. So the key innovations we did is basically context-aware rules. So since we already split the essays into different sections, and we can also check those sections one by one if they fulfill their specific needs. For example, abstract needs to have certain tenses, and we also check that, so it's context aware. And then it has adaptive scoring. Teachers can actually edit how harsh they want their grading to be. So they can change the parameters, so it can be like a harsher grading or an easier grading. And then feedback management. This is actually real time. So every time we remove feedback or you modify something, this updates. Maybe similar to grammar. And we also do our best to do token usage reduction by using file URI. So the system is a lot more cheap and a lot more effective. So in conclusion, I think this project demonstrated potential, a scalable, grounded LLM feedback system, like an AI-powered system that can help a lot of teachers to make grading a lot quicker and a lot easier. And what we hope for in the future is, we already did some of this, the file-based integration and runtime optimization, but we hope to be able to also maybe check for equations, check for images as well in the future, and maybe implement an RAG system that makes the experience a lot more efficient and a lot cheaper as well. So I think that's it for me for this project, and I appreciate your attention.
As a teacher, I think the two main concerns for me is, first is, did you sort of copy and paste the plagiarization? And second, did you write it by AI or by yourself? Can you detect these two?
We haven't really added fact checking as well as plagiarization, since we think that that's a lot more complicated.
But that's the most serious because nowadays a lot of people write it by just by ask AI to write it. I mean, so this is definitely okay because AI get excellent English. So
We are concerned, as far as we know, is that, for example, certain stylistic expectation in engineering writing is usually not met. For example, certain ways you write sentences. It's listed in this book called Pink and White Elements of Style. Sometimes people write with proper grammar, however, it's stylistically not according to certain engineering conventions. So that's what we want to focus on, like more on grammar than style. And in the future, we might add fact checking as well and plagiarization checks in the future works.
So great presentation. Two questions. The first one is when we talk about assessments, we care about whether or not the scoring is consistent. Every time when you put the same prompt to the AI, is that consistent? The first one, is that reliable? The second one is I kind of a little forgot my second question. You can answer the first one.
Okay. So far we've already checked for the role position, and it's so far pretty accurate because we already did like a lot of preemptives for it. So the prompting itself is very strict, and it goes through several what was it called? Check and balances. So we already have a redundancy filtering, for example. We already have multiple layers of checks. So I think so far it does pretty well, but it definitely has places for improvement, and that's why we want to hopefully maybe fine tune it further and implement other methods so that it can be better.
And the other question is, I'm just curious. Did you compare the AI feedback with the real person feedback, and is that the same, or is there any differences between real person feedback and the AI feedback?
Our standards, it was our professor's his feedback to a student, and this is one of the samples that we use. And so far we caught most of what the professors flagged, but obviously we also understandably missed some. However, it's we discuss it and we find it to be not that significant, and I think it's on a good track right now. But I think the result might vary with the length of the text. Sometimes if you submit like a 40-page paper, it might miss some parts, but that's also the parts we really want to improve.
Thank you.
Thank you.